Welcome back. Feels like it's only been 10 seconds, and that's because it has been. In this video, we are going to make our application look amazing so that we can be professional drug sellers on the internet. So last thing we did was set up all of these routes. Once again, the code is in the GitHub if you want to check it out. The next thing we're going to do is start styling all of our pages. And to do that, we have to set up a couple of things. The first thing is that we're going to be looking at context in Next.js because we'll need a global state to manage our products and our basket. And the second thing that we'll use is UseReducer because it's a more efficient way of managing state and context. And the third thing will be layout in Next.js, and that's probably the best place to start. So we're gonna, in our main directory, make a folder called components. And in components, we're going to make a file called layout, should probably spell that right, layout.js, RFC, we'll initialize that. We're gonna make another one called header.js, RFC, and we're also going to make another file called footer.js. And so with these three files initialized, we're going to come into our app component and we're going to wrap our component in layout tags. And we should probably also import layout. So that's just my auto imports working nicely. And in our layout component, we are going to have an empty div, and at the top of the div, we're going to have our header, and we're going to have a main, and where we're going to render children, it's going to be the children content within our layout tags. So in here, we should destructure const. I like to do it this way. Children is equal to props. And then up here we'll just have props. And then underneath main we're going to have, you guessed it, footer. Nice. Nope. Come on, let's get that auto import working. Footer. Okay, that doesn't. Footer? Nope, that's not going to work for me. So what I'm going to do is just copy that down and change these two from header to footer. Nice. The next thing that we're going to do, so type element is invalid. Complicated. Don't know where that's coming from. App layout, that should be fine. That should be fine. We will fix that soon. The next thing we are going to do is to actually make these components something. You see? Nice. Fixed it. And now that our layout is working, we're just going to give it some style. So the first thing we're going to do is, in here, we are going to set this to class name of relative. We're going to have min height screen, and we're also going to go flex 1. That is not correct. We're going to go, let's think about this. Probably flex column. And actually down here what we're going to do is make another div and paste these two inside, and I'm actually going to take all of these styles, all of them, and put them in here. So that's going to be min height screen. Let me think about this for a second. No, so we're just going to have flex and flex col here. This is going to have a class name of flex1, and that will push everything to the bottom. And since this is relative, I think I want this to be min height screen. Cool. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is come into our header, and we're going to make this look excellent. So we're going to go class name of shadow large. We're going to go py of 8. I'm going to go flex justify center items, center, so it's just going to center everything in the middle. And I also should note that I'm going to style for mobile first. And also, while we're talking about styling, I'm also just going to quickly come over to global CSS and add in a font family of Poppins, because that's going to be the font that we use for this. Cool. So in here we have our header, so this is going to be James's I'm going to call it James's drugs, just like that. So the other thing we're going to need inside of here, so I'm going to make this an h1 tag, and I'm going to wrap James's drugs in that h1 tag. I'm going to give this a class of no class, well actually cursor pointer select none, so that they can't select it. And I'm also going to go transition, so this applies duration and hover and color transitions, and I'm going to go hover. I want the opacity to be reduced to 50, and I want to reset the duration to 300. So what that's going to mean is that when I hover over it, it just looks like a nice little button, and that is going to redirect me to home. The next thing I'm going to do is add in a particular icon, and this icon is going to serve the purpose of being our cute little checkout basket. Just like that, nice and easy. And so I'm just going to go div, I'm going to put this inside a div, and I'm going to add one more style here, and that's going to be flex of 1, just so that this h1 tag takes up all of that space. Yeah, and I might actually just add a text center to that. So that's just going to center the text there. And so I've applied some styles here. Once again, you can check out the GitHub repository in the description. But the next thing we're going to start styling is the cards. So I'm going to make another component, and this one is going to be called purchase card.js. I'm going to RFC that bad boy. And if we come into here, this one is pretty basic. So we're going to have a class of width 60, height 80, shadow medium, border solid, border gray 100, cursor pointer transition, hover opacity 60. Did I do 60? I did 50, but we're going to do 60. And last thing is background of white. Cool, so you can't see it because I'm not using it, but I will now. So in our main application, we don't need to have that open anymore, so we'll keep it to that nice tight mobile view. But in here, instead of returning a div, I'm going to return a purchase card, which I will have to add to the other side. And I'm also going to take off this on-click effect, because I no longer just want to buy drugs every time I click on my card. But that's looking pretty tidy. I might just put all of this inside a little div. And what I'll do is just, actually no, we don't have to do that. It's being excessive. Even better, I'm going to manage that in my layout file, and around this section here, I'm just going to go padding Y of 5. Just going to add some vertical space. Super nice. I'm actually also just going to make this max width. So I'm going to make this max width of, on a screen size that is smaller than a small screen, it's going to be a max width of 2/3. And I'm also going to give it an MX of auto. So that should center it. And on a maximum width, the cards that get mapped out won't go too wide. So that should be nice. I'm also just going to come in here and add a gap. No, I won't do that there. Flex col. Perfect. Okay, so back into our index.javascript file. I totally will come back into the layout file, and we're actually going to apply some more styles here. So for the cards, we're going to have them in flex wrap, so they wrap around, and I'm going to go for a gap of 5. So if you have multiple cards, it would just mean there's some spacing between them, but that should just about do that. So now back to the purchase card. In here, we're going to receive props, and just here, I'm going to destructure some stuff from props, specifically the price item. And so that is going to be the individual price that gets passed to it from our index.js file. So just here, I'm going to go price is equal to price, just like that. Beautiful. We can get rid of that class name, and we can change just about everything in here, to be honest. And we can just make this a close. So each one is going to have a price, and then if we come into here and console.log price, it will just be, you guessed it. Nope, don't want to record, console. Exactly what we've been dealing with so far. So in here, what I'm going to do is price.product.images, if the images exist, and then I'm going to render a div. Should probably do that properly. I'm going to give it a closing tag, a class of height of 60. So the whole thing is a height of 80, so it's just going to be most of it in an object contain. Actually, let's, yeah, 60 is fine, sure. Cool, and in here, you probably guessed what's going to go inside, an image. And said image is going to have a source of price.product.images 0. We'll give it an alt of price.product.name, and we will close that image tag. And just like that, our drugs is perfectly displayed within our little thingy McJiggy Bobby. Underneath that, we're going to have a little h1 tag, and that is just going to have price.product.name. And we're going to give that a class name of text small, text center, padding Y2, font light, and tracking wide for some letter spacing. Beautiful. Or maybe yes, uppercase. Nice, drugs, cool. Underneath that, we're going to have our paragraph tag, and this is going to be class name. Actually, what I'm going to do is just make a div here, bring this down, have those two in it, and I'm going to go class of flex, px4, justify between, and items center. And what that's going to do is when I have this in here, which is going to be price.unit_amount divided by 100, because it gives you to it in cents, which doesn't make any sense, 30. And obviously that looks terrible, so let's just give it some quick styling, which is going to be text small, font extra light. Cute. $30 drugs. Lastly, underneath this div, we're going to have a, can be a button or a div, whatever you like. It's going to say checkout. We're going to go none of that. Class is going to be with full flex 1, and we are going to make it background black. Actually change it to add to basket. text white mx4. Nope, guess it's going to be px4, which is also not going to work. That's because I've set my widths. So instead of setting width full, I'm going to go mx4, px4, go px8, and we'll go mx auto. Nope, that didn't work. How do I want to center this button? I could easily just flex, col, justify center. Yeah, I mean, I actually don't mind that, to be honest. And what I'm even going to do is just get rid of the MX Auto. Okay, cool. So that's going to be our little thingy McJiggy Bobby, our little drugsy wugsies. But I'm going to change the... Actually, I'm not going to do any of that. What I'm going to do is actually get rid of this button, because we're going to add another page where users can come and do everything. And so I'm actually going to get rid of these. And lastly, I might actually have them sit one on top of the other and center them both. Sorry about all of those changes. Just like that. Okay, so that's our little drugs page. The next thing we're going to do is come in and just add some more styles to the header. Now, the header is going to be a sticky header. And so for that, I'm just going to use sticky 0. Nope, just sticky. And I'm going to give it a top of 0 relative. No, not relative. What am I talking about? Sticky Z50. Have I got a background of white? We just need a background of white on that. Cool. And then what do we want to do next? I guess what we could probably do is make a new page. So for this, what we're going to do is in pages, we're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call this ID. And in here, we're going to have a file, and I believe it's called index.js. And I would be correct, index.javascript. And that's going to be RFC. And we are going to change this from index to description. Not that that means anything. And so this page is going to receive some stuff. So in here we're going to have our props, but to receive stuff, we're going to have an export async function get server-side props, just like before, with context. And in here, we're going to take and we're going to destructure params equals context. And so basically, when we link to this page, which we're actually going to do right now, purchase card on click is equal to, and we're going to go router.push slash, I'm going to use backticks slash price.id. So when we click on this, oh, we should probably import router. Next router. So when we click on this file, it's going to try and redirect us to this page, which isn't going to work because I haven't done this properly. From here, we're just going to have to return props, which is just going to be ID of params.id. So if I try that again, we redirect to this page, and we're going to render this content out here, and in here we're going to have the description or anything else that we added about our product. And so if we just go back to Stripe real quick, click on our drugs, the description actually is hello. That's funny. Let me see if I can just edit that. Edit. Really, really good drugs, no fentanyl. I don't know how you spell it. Okay, so we'll bring that back down and we're going to have all of that load in here. Beautiful. So, because my brain is everywhere, let's just come back into the layout for a second. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is that the footer is just here. And you might be thinking, why is that? And that would be an excellent question. Why is our footer not taking the entire page? And that's because we have to also do flex col, so it's a column, and make it so this is flex 1. And that will basically mean that this takes up the entire page without getting rid of our header. Now the other thing we're going to come and do real quick is we're just going to come into our header, and on this H1 we're going to add in on click is equal to router.push, and we're just going to push back home. So now when I click on James's drugs, it doesn't do anything because I haven't imported router from next router. Let's try that again. James's drugs takes us home. Click on my drugs. Beautiful. Just how you'd want it to work. Cool. So that's all that stuff. That's this main. I mean, may as well style out the footer just while we're looking at it. So for the footer component, what I'm going to do is just going to be super simple. I'm going to have a class name of flex. Actually, I'm going to do grid, and I'm going to go place item center. These are the two ways you can easily center content in here. And we're just going to come over to our font awesome icons, and we're going to go for the Instagram icon. We'll go for the Instagram square, paste that bad boy in there, and then there we have an atrocious looking, that is terrible. So we're going to go for this one. Hopefully that looks a bit better. Got a nice little Instagram icon. We're going to go PY4, add some padding, and we're also just going to once again go hover, no, transition, hover, let's go text green 400. Let's see if that just works. Yeah, there you go. That's kind of cute. Last thing, cursor pointer. And so what I'd recommend doing is wrapping this bad boy in an A tag, and you will want to most likely add an href here, put in the link to your Instagram handle there, and then when people go click on this thing, it'll link them to your page, which will be handy dandy. So that's nice and neat. That should be on all pages. Always at the bottom, always working. So the last few things we have to do is quickly style out this little page here and get our checkout working. So let's dive into that. So for this page, we actually have to also do all the context stuff, but we'll get to that in a minute. Actually, we need it for this page, so we'll do it right now. So we are going to come into here and add a new folder. And we're going to call that folder context. And in here, we're going to have a couple of files. One is going to be cart context.javascript, and the other one is going to be app-reducer.javascript. Now, you don't technically need the app reducer. You can do this all as state, but the app reducer is going to make your component more efficient. And so we have a couple of lines that we're going to need to import, and so I'm just going to be sneaky deaky and import them all right now. Link in the description for the GitHub repository. And basically, we have to initialize the context with this line here. So app context is equal to create context. From here, we're going to export a function called app wrapper. You can probably guess what it's going to do. It's going to take destructure children, and in here, we're going to need everything that we do in our AppReducer function. Now, this function is great because it's also going to save to local storage. So whenever people are using your application, it's going to mean that if they have a cart and they close and then they open it up again, it's all saved, which is absolutely amazing. But now, if we come into our AppReducer, what we're going to have to do is first export const initial state. And this is what our initial state is going to look like. And so we're going to have prices, because we're going to save prices. That's going to be an empty object. And then we're going to have products, which is everything in the cart, and that is going to be an object. And then beneath this particular structure, which is missing a couple of things, don't need those silly little things, we're going to export const AppReducer, and that's going to equal state, and we're going to give state an initial value of initial state, and it's also going to take an action, and that is going to be equal to, not that, but this. And in here we're going to have a whole bunch of switch cases depending on the action type. So it's going to be switch, we're going to do space action.type. So depending on the action type, do the following. So for example, you have a case, in this case I'm going to call it add product. And I like to make a note of what I expect them to receive. So in this case, I would expect this one to receive an array that has an ID. That's pretty much it, really. Honestly, we could just straight up pass the ID. Easy peasy. Okay, so add product is going to receive an ID, and then it's going to do some particular thing, and so you return a new state value. So in this case, I'm just going to spread state. And so this won't actually do anything, it'll just spread the state. But that's essentially how this is going to work. And so if we go back into our app wrapper, the app wrapper, nope, let's not do that just yet. Let's come back into this file. Actually, no, yeah, we're good to go. Cool. So in our app wrapper cart context, we're going to go const state dispatch is equal to UseReducer AppReducer, which we imported from our AppReducer file. We're also going to pass it the initial state. And so this is how you initialize this whole process using the reducer functions. From here, we're going to memvoice, which is basically just remember the outcome of until a particular value, so it doesn't get recreated on every instance. We're going to go shared state is equal to use memo, and in here we're going to give it a dependency array so that it knows when to recreate itself instead of always recreating itself. So it's just going to remember this returned object, which is just going to have state and dispatch. You'll see why we use that soon. The next thing we're going to do is have some good old use effects. And so these are going to be for saving for local storage. So this first one is just going to run on the get-go, and it's just going to, as soon as prices is initialized in our main index file, which is just here, as soon as prices is initialized in our main application here, it's just going to run this and use this use effect to save everything to local storage. So we're going to go if json.pass local storage.get item, which is going to be mg items. So if that all exists, we're going to dispatch anything that previously existed, so that like we load up the website If they have products, we're going to just give them their products. So in here we have type, we pass an object, and it's going to have load items. Oh. And then this is going to have value, json.parse local storage.get item, mg items. That's just a key that I'm using. You can name it whatever you want. So once again, on load, it's going to set all of our products to whatever's saved in our local storage. So that's our first use effect. The second one is just going to do the following. So let's comment that out. Oh, it actually does have dependencies, so it's just going to be on state variation. So every time state varies, so if the state is not equal to initial state, then we are just going to local storage dot set item mg items, and we're going to set it to json dot stringify the current state. So that's just going to mean that our state is maintained across renders, which is dope swaggity. Oops. The next thing we're going to have to do in here is some returns. So the return is actually pretty simple. All we have to do now, we made that app context up above, so now we're going to use it here. App context.provider value is equal to shared state, which is this saved thing here. So that means that all of our little functions and everything are going to be available. This is the shared state that the context gives global state across our app, and in here we just give the children. So it means that they're always going to have access to the state and the dispatch, which is like the equivalent to the set state. And the last thing we're going to do is just export function use app context, and this is just going to mean that you don't constantly have to do this additional step in every file. And this is just going to return use context, which is not here, but up here, and we're going to pass it app context, and that's just going to save you that one additional step in every file. So now that we can actually use all this stuff, I'm just going to quickly make some base reducer cases. So this one is for the add product. Now we don't need many, we just need a case for remove product. I'll set them up in a second. We're going to have a case for vary count. So if they increment or decrement the number of drugs that they want. And I think the last one is load items. Oh no, we need two more. Load items, so that's just going to load their pre-saved items if they reload the page. And the last one is going to be set prices. And this is going to mean when the prices load on page render that it's just saved. So this bottom one is pretty straightforward. We're just going to return spread the state, and we're just going to update prices so that it matches action.value. And so the content is going to come through in the value, and so that's just going to be an array. The load item is also pretty simple, so this is just going to be return, once again, spread the state. And prices is going to be the last previous thing, so that's just going to be action.value.prices. And products is going to be action.value.products. Keeping in mind that this step here is what happens in our card context just here, so it sets everything up. The next one is going to be the vary count, and so that one is basically dependent on how we store products. So what I was thinking, and you can do it however you want, was I was going to have a product, and it's basically just the key is the ID, and the value is the quantity. So what it's essentially going to do is we're going to vary the count. It's going to spread the state. I should probably return an object. Return spread the state. And then we're going to have products, open that up as an object, and we're also going to spread init state dot products. So that's just going to get them all out. And then for the particular value that we return, so this is going to take, the first thing is obviously going to be the ID, and the second thing is going to be like up or down, I guess. So it's going to be, I guess, the quantity. Yeah, quantity is probably a good way to do it. Actually, no, even better, I'm going to set it to the new count. So the second thing, the first thing in the array is going to be the ID. The second thing is going to be the new count. So when it finds the particular key, so for that key, that product ID, I just want to set that to new count, which is going to be an action.value. It's going to be the first index, and ID is going to be the 0th index. So I should probably do that, action.value 0. The remove product is pretty straightforward. So that is just going to be going to spread the state, and keep forgetting to return. So we're going to return an object, spread the state. Nope, don't want that. And in here we're going to have products. And what I think we will do is actually set it to a reducer function. So I'm going to go object.keys state.product. So that's going to find all the keys, and I'm going to reduce that. And so reducer function takes an accumulator and a current value. And if we start returning some, we're going to set the default object to an object. And it's basically going to be a filter except on an object. If current, which is the current key, is not equal to, and so this is just going to take an ID. So it's going to be action.value. Then I'm going to return, so we have to spread ACC, the accumulated object, and I'm just going to add in the current, and I'm going to set that to state.products, whatever the current value is. Otherwise, I'm just going to return ACC. So that's just going to create a whole new object with everything except for that particular thing. And then the last one is this excellent, easy one. And so products is just going to be, we just spread state.products, and it's going to take an ID, which is pretty straightforward, and so that is just going to be the new product, which is action.value, and we're just going to set that to 1. Cool, so that should be all of our main app reducer function setup. Now we can, actually I think before we do this last page we should probably just, oh no, we have to add to cart in here. Okay, so now we can come into our index page that we were styling and actually make it look pretty. So for this particular page, the first thing we're going to have to do is destructure some values out. So I'm going to come in here, ID, and I'm going to rename that to path is equal to props. So that's just going to destructure that value out. The next thing I'm going to do is destructure state and prices and give it a default value of a bracket and dispatch, all from our use app context, which is exciting. So we get to use that. Now it didn't like that. We will not this minute find out why. Big mistake. So it's not even a big mistake. The other thing we forgot to do is we actually have to wrap everything in it. So we have to go app wrapper Nope, didn't want that. Wrapper. And we have to wrap our entire component in this so that it can access that state. So now, when we run this, it's happy. It says that it doesn't like my icon, and I think that that was in the footer component, and that's because we have to update that to class name without doing everything else. Beautiful. And so adding that app wrapper around everything in our app component just means that that shared state is accessible globally. And so in here, I can continue with what I was doing, destructure state, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go const and figure out what product it is by going prices.filter the val.id is equal to path.replace any of these funky characters with empty strings. And I'm just going to take the 0th index of that. So that's just going to figure out what product it is by matching this URL ID to the particular product from the state. And so now we can start to just make everything nice and beautiful. But first we may as well just add to basket. So add to basket prod. Cool, and that is just going to go if, no ifs and buts really, we're just going to return, this is called a curried function, which is kind of exciting. So basically, you'll see soon, but we are going to dispatch an object with the type of add product, because we're adding it to the cart. And we're going to set the value to, I think it was just prod.id. And so all we have to do in here is at the very bottom of everything we're going to do, we're going to add a button with an on-click is equal to add to basket product. Cool. And then we will just make a little close tag button, and that is going to be add to basket. Nice. Cool, so when we click on that, that should add it to our basket, and that's not really going to help us much right now, but it will soon. So for the rest of the app, we have a whole lot of styles that I'm just going to copy in. Class name is MX Auto with fit content flex wrap, justify center, medium, we want a gap of 6. That's the first thing. At the top of the page, we're going to have an image, and it's going to have an src equals product.images 0. We're going to have an alt tag of product.product.id, and I'm going to be naughty and give it some inline styles, which you're not really allowed to do. You are, but it's bad practice. I'm going to go max height of 600 pixels. Nice. And also we need the alt, which is going to be already done. So I'm going to close that bad boy by actually closing it. And it didn't enjoy that. And the reason is totally unknown. So what we're going to have to do now is come into our index file, and we're just going to set up a little function that sets everything up nice and smooth. So basically, we just want a use effect that on prices is going to dispatch, which we'll probably need to import into here. We're going to go type set prices, and we're going to go value. It's just prices. Cool. Cool. So now let's just import everything that we need. So once again, we're also going to have to do the const state dispatch is equal to use app context. And now if we refresh this page, let's see if it does what it should do. There you go, look at that. Prices and products is initialized. And so now when we click on it, it actually loads the image and we can add it to the basket. So that is just fabulous. Okay, so now that we have this page, we're just going to make some pretty things happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is come back into this index page over here with the product, and we're going to continue to style this bad boy. So we've got this massive image, this Goliath image, and I'm going to get some water. Alrighty, so let's continue styling this bad boy of a page. So we're going to close that's all working, smooth and fancy. So we're going to start off by having a div. We've got a few class names here, so we're going to start off with min width min content, max width min content, white space, no wrap. In this div, we're going to have an h1 tag. It's going to have a class name of text small, py3 font light, tracking wide, and text is going to be extra large until it's a large page where the text is going to be 3XL. In this, we're going to have product.name. And I'm actually just going to add a little piece of code just up here. Just say if not product. So if product is empty, we're just going to return a div that says shitty. Nice. So we can see how drugs is coming up over there. That's actually not where I wanted it. But you know, sometimes that's just how these things work. That is where I wanted it. What am I talking about? That's good. Nice. That's actually just where we wanted it. Yeah, it'll make sense soon. Don't you worry. We'll figure it out. Okay, cool. So the next thing underneath this h1 tag is going to be another div. And in here we're going to have a p tag. And in that p tag we're going to have product.description. And I should probably close that. And that should give us some contento. Nice. Really, really good drugs. That's just what I was looking for. We're going to have a class is max width full, white space normal. Oh, that's right space. White space normal. We're going to have a text justify, a heading bottom of 4, and a font of light. That's almost looking better, but still not really. I'm actually just going to comment this out for a second. Oh, cool, centered. Looks tragic, but centered. We're also going to have, honestly, that's pretty much, we need the price somewhere. Where do we want the price? I think it actually comes right now. So we're going to have a p tag, and in here, I'm going to have product.unit amount divided by 1,000, which should actually be inside here. Oh, don't want the double. And I'm going to put the little $sign in here. And this is actually great because we can finally see the sticky working. Look at that. Isn't that good? Sticky, sticky. Cool. So that's good. I'm actually going to get rid of these for a second. That's actually better. I think, what else was in there? Yeah, that's preferable. Okay, do I want to center it? Not yet. What I'm going to do is font light, that's the description. I want to make the header huge. Text 2XL? Yeah, I prefer that. Cool, and I'm probably going to capitalize it. Capitalize. Honestly, font awesome is Tailwind is excellent. Okay, cool. Last thing I'll probably do is move this, I think, because what I think I want to do is have a div here, and I want to have my price there. And if I go class flex justify between items center, that'll go like that, which is actually, I think, kind of nice. And then if I go to a big screen, big screen, you can see it comes up over there, which is cool. Dope. Screen's down, hops down there. Excellent. Wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is, once again, bring back this checkout button. And so I'm going to do HR, which means horizontal line. I don't know where that went, but it didn't go where I wanted it to, that's for sure. And that's because it actually goes up here. Horizontal line. There it is. Nice. Neat. And then we're going to move our button into this zone and uncomment it. So that's our button, and I'm going to add some hunky-dory styles to this bad boy. In particular, this list of styles, which I got from the GitHub page that you can find all of this code at. It's not happy. Now it's happy. Cool. Cute little button. We can add that bad boy to our basket. And that should just about do it. And then if we go to a bigger screen, it's just over like that. We can add it to the basket. Looks super neat and tidy. And if we were to come down to a little mobile, well, that's not a mobile, is it? Small edition, nice and neat. So that is our page. Now, why don't we actually just see if that button works? Nothing happened, and that's actually a good thing, because what we can do is come over and go to Application, and if we look at this bad boy, we see that it's actually got our product, which is hunky-dory. And if I add it again, did anything happen? No, it will have just overridden it. But you know, whatever. Cool, so we got our drugs. The last thing we have to do now is do our little checkout window to display our checkout. Cool. And so for that, we will come to the following page, our header. This is where the magic's going to happen. We are going to have some very special code going on here, and we're going to start up from the beginning by coming in here and stealing this checkout function and actually pasting it into the header, because this is where, once again, all the magic is going to happen. So that's all hunky-dory. We're also going to need to do const state dispatch is equal to use app context. Nice. And we're also just going to initialize some state. So I'm going to go const display checkout set. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just call it cool. Set cool is equal to I'm not even going to import it. React.use state, and I'm going to set this to false initially. The next thing we're going to do is define two functions. The first function is going to be called increment, and it's going to take an ID and a count, and it's going to return, once again, another curried function. It's going to return dispatch, and we're going to go type is going to be vary count, and the value is going to be an array with the ID and the count plus 1. And this might blow your mind, but the decrement one is actually going to be pretty similar. Just like that. Nice. Nice and neat. Excellent. Cute. Cool. So that's that stuff done. The next thing we have to do is actually make our modal. So our modal is going to go into here, and you could separate this into a different component, but I'm not going to because I'm a lazy bum. And we're just going to go cool and have this conditional display. So I'm going to give it a div, open that bad boy up, give it a couple of lines. We're going to put in some styles here, but I'm also actually just going to go ref is equal to modal ref. Now, we haven't initialized that, but I'm going to go const modal ref is equal to react.useRef. Nice. You could just, I'm going to import them, whatever. Use state, use ref. And then we can get rid of these lines. Nice. Okay, cool. And so in here, this needs some cool little styles, which I'm just going to copy. I really apologize for that. But you can find them all on the GitHub page. But basically, it just sets it to the right side of the screen. And I'm actually going to probably just copy everything in here because it's not important and it's much, 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 much faster. So I think it'll just be a bit like that. And now, when I open the modal, it's not going to work. And that is because I haven't wired anything up to work. So this is going to be on click is equal to, we want to set cool to not cool, whatever it isn't. And that opens up our cart, and then we have our checkout. And we also just have to change a couple things. This is going to be set cool. And what that will mean is that when I close it, it's all nice and neat. And then if we just look at this on a mobile view or small view, it takes up the full page. Hunky-dory. Nice little button. Excellent. Beautiful. So the next thing, so yeah, we can add it to our basket and then come into our basket and it should display. But currently it's not, and that's because everything is wrong. What we're going to have to do is actually have some content to display. And for that, we will need to come fiddle with the stuff in here. So let's just console.log state.products. See what that tells us. Console. All right, so we have an object, header, state.products1. So if we must have an issue with our application storage. So if we just look at that, we will see, oh no, that's working. Well, then the issue is obviously not that. So the issue must instead be, there it is. What am I even talking about? Okay, so let's come down in here. Now, where we have object.keys.mapState.products, that's going to take the product ID. In here, I'm actually going to delete some of this code because it's not necessarily immediately necessary. If I just get rid of that, we should still have everything the same. And what we're going to do is under all of this good content, that horizontal line, we're going to start by going, okay, so object.keys state.products, we're going to map that bad boy, and we're going to take the product and an index, and we are going to return a div. just an empty div. And it's going to have a class of height to width to background green 200. And that is right there, which is good. That's good news. That's what we want. We're also going to need to give it a key equals index, because otherwise React and Next.js gets grumpy. And then we're going to enter this bad boy onto a new line. So after entering that onto a new line, we are going to come into here and console.log product. And that actually tells us what it is, but that's kind of useless to us. So what we're going to have to do is build in some logic that is going to say, okay, const prod, because we only have the ID, remember, we don't have the entire product. So we're going to have const prod is equal to state.products, product ID, and const, this is actually going to be product ID, it's a better name for it. So product is equal to state.prices.find, and we're going to go val.id is equal to product ID. And then if we console.log product, it actually gives us the product, which is way more useful than just the ID. So now that we have the product, we can actually start adding in some cool, cute little stuff. So I am just going to copy in some basic content that I already had pre-prepared, because I'm organized like that. And essentially, it's just a display for the product name and the product amount. So $30, I should probably get rid of this. Nice. And instead there, what we're going to do is we're going to have the following styles. So it's just going to be all cute and adorable. Nice. And so that is going to be our first product. We have a tiny little gray line there. And the next thing we're going to need in this section is some quantity information. And so for that, I am just going to also be a bit cheeky and copy in some pre-organized information, which comes after this div, and it is not going to need this part, but essentially it's just going to have a number which is not currently defined, and that's because up here we need to figure it out. So number is actually just going to be product. It's going to be state.products.product ID. Why have we got a size in there? Oh, that's not good, is it? Oh, I need to just clear that out. If you want to know how to do sizes for t-shirts, that's a different matter. Number is still not defined. Okay, const number. Number is not defined. That's because it will be in just a second, because I'm going to switch it out with this. So that's the number of units. And then we'll have this working quantity box, which will note that if we go all the way down to 0, goes to 0 and continues to go down, which actually doesn't make any sense. And the other thing I'm going to do is just set a fixed width on it, which it actually is. So instead what I might do is just move this whole thing to class flex. Nope, I'm actually going to do that somewhere else. Just in here, class flex, justify between items center. Did that work? Nope, that did not work. At least it's fixed. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, that's all good. Okay, so now what we have to do is come up to our decrement function, and we're actually just going to add in a little clause here. So basically if count minus 1 is greater than 0, then we're going to do this code up here. So we're going to open that up. Otherwise, we're going to return a different dispatch, which is just going to be to remove type remove product. We're going to go value ID. Just like that. So now if we come in here and we go down to 0, boom, ID is not defined. Beautiful. That's just what I was looking for. And that's because if I come in here, that actually needs to be commented out. Bang, empty cart. Add it back. Look at that, magic. Alrighty. So the next thing we're just going to do is the checkout, I guess. So if we come into, once again, that header page and come down to the checkout button. So on click checkout, they go to checkout. We're just going to have to make line items. And so as we saw before, that's just going to be a bunch of objects. And so I'm just going to copy that down, comment that one out. And in here, we're just going to go object.keys. It's once again state.products.map. Get rid of all of this funky monkey junky. And in this case, we just need the ID, and we are going to return an object that has price equal to ID, and we're going to have a quantity, if I can spell it right, equal to state.products. I'm going to pass it that ID. And that should do our line items just about right. So now if I add that to a basket, increase the quantity up a bit, check that bad boy out, we get redirected to a page to buy our fentanyl jugs, and we can do whatever we want. That's literally it. Absolutely magic. So obviously there's a lot more you can do to this particular application, and if there's anything that you'd like me to carry on or explain in more in depth or anything like that, just let me know. But yeah, if you've enjoyed the tutorial, like and subscribe. I'll be doing heaps more of this. I've got a great Next.js full stack application with a Node.js backend coming out next weekend. So stay tuned, my brethren. Peace. Catch you later.